some shameless daring and a good idea, or perhaps a few borrowed or even stolen ideas, any competent developer can outdo a decadent billion-dollar franchise, at least in certain aspects. But that doesn't automatically make this a great game, and that's important. So let's get back to the accusations of theft later on and talk about what really makes Palworld tick, or even where it talks. The thing is, you've seen Palworld before, many times even. As I've already laid out, nothing here is immediately unique. You come from nothing and you begin with nothing. Nothing but an idea, of course. The idea of capitalism. I'm kidding, of course, but I'm being totally serious. The main gameplay design of Palworld is the idea of never-ending expansion in terms of equipment, items, and their production and sustainability. But nothing in this world is made from nothing, so we of course go scavenging. There is a lone NPC sitting by a fireplace nearby, but other than provide some advice and 10 units of wood, they're not really that useful to us, not in a material sense and not in a spiritual sense either. But around us lays the means to our first expansion. Wood to craft a primitive workbench, and stone which together allow us to create the game's first tools. You are immediately exposed to the level system as well, as you level up from building that workbench. You'll notice that the game features a hunger system, and since you're new, you might not realize where Paldium, the game's magic ore essentially, is located. So you might see fit to build yourself a club for self-defense, which you'll soon enough find yourself using. This is when you'll come face to face with Palworld's combat system. And let me tell you, I've fought my share of enemies in video games in my life, but I don't think any have come close to being this weird about it. Like okay, take Pokemon. Even though you might be fighting a cute Squirtle, it's still not really you fighting. It's Pokemon versus Pokemon. I mean heck, even in like Dragon Quest where the enemies look stupidly cheerful sometimes, it's often the monsters that seek you out. Plus it's like turn-based and stuff. But here, you're straight up beating the living daylights out of a fat chicken with a baseball bat. Later on, you'll be using a bow to do the job. Or what about a fucking gun to the face? You almost sound stupid talking about how awful this is because damn man, look at those colors. None of this looks scary or realistic or anything. But here we are, shooting the cutest thing you ever saw in the face with an 18th century musket that comes with a proper reload animation. Killing monsters, pals, which arguably makes this worse, does serve a utility of course. Depending on the pal, we get food and various materials that will be useful or even vital to our quest of becoming the #1 pal plantation owner on the island, or in this living hell as the very first NPC tells us. If you found Paldium yet, either by mining some or finding it laying on the ground, you're now able to make a pal sphere, a design I love by the way. And with the pal sphere, we can do as the pal god intended, beat up a cat senselessly before we trap it in a tiny little ball in perpetuity. But the most important thing you'll do in the beginning, in fact one of the most important things you'll be doing in the entire game, is choose where to set up your pal box. The pal box is your hub, it's the central nerve of your base and being. Pals you eventually capture will work within a certain radius of the pal box, which makes it vitally important to consider which resources lay within said radius, as pals will not mine or gather resources outside of it. Pals who are eventually knocked out in combat will need to be revived at a pal box too. Indeed, you'll ideally have a base that's on a flat surface as well, since having elevation might introduce problems related to pathfinding, which the current AI is not really fit to deal with and can majorly screw you over. I found out the hard way since I do admit I like the scenic view, and I mean the game essentially baits you into creating your base on this hilltop since it serves as a perfect vantage point. But this hill right here is rough man, it's so rough that in truth it's not worth it. I know it's tempting, but maybe not. Or perhaps move further back towards the mountain maybe. It is a free pal world in the end. Either way, this is when the game really begins. For even though you can technically build stuff anywhere in the world, you can only build so many pal boxes at the same time, at least depending on your stage in the game. They serve not only as important fast travel spots, but within its radius, every resource you've placed in every box will count as if they are in your inventory, which relieves a lot of stress on management when you want to build and make stuff. In addition, the pal box, much like your own personal level, determines how populated your base can become. You essentially accumulate more pals with each level up to a point. So why would you want pals in your base? You see, while you technically can harvest all the resources yourself, water the fields yourself, and make those tools and weapons yourself, wouldn't it be nice if you had some company, perhaps some unpaid company? This is where those pals fairs come back in the picture, and also where it actually means something what pals you capture. Some pals only know how to fire up furnaces or torches, others excel mainly at farming or putting out fires, while others still are vastly more versatile. In fact, one of the most versatile pals in the game, at least for the essential tasks in the beginning few dozen hours, is Cativa, or Cativa, or something. The pink cat I happened to make my very first prison, I mean pal. The more pals you have in your base, the more stuff can be done at the same time, or the more tasks your pals can do for or alongside you, of course depending on their skills. Even though the game doesn't tell you outright, there's even a difference in the level of innate skills for each pal, meaning that the fire pal Foxspark, which has a level 1 fire rating, heats up your ore and coal significantly slower than an Arsox, which has a level 2 fire rating. Similarly, and much more significantly, most pals in the starting area who can mine only has a level 1 mining skill, while you need at least a level 2 mining skill to have them mine ore, which becomes a major resource about 1/3 into the game. Now that's jumping slightly ahead of ourselves, but still, it's important to know in case you're wondering why your tiny monkey isn't hacking away at the shiny ore right in front of him. It is great when the systems actually work and don't totally bug out, as it did for me for several minutes or even hours, because when it does work, it feels like you've made your own ecosystem, your own pal company if you will. The automation of more tedious processes, if you like actual resource grinding, is a good thing, and I think the fact that Palworld combines this automation with having these essentially cute pets do the work is a very cool idea. Again, it works. But pals are so much more than just workers, a little more at least. Other than the worker skills they each possess, every pal belongs to a different type. Say fire, ice, water, dark, grass, and so on, and just like in a certain other franchise, each type is strong and weak against other types. This is how my tiny but brave little Foxspark can take on a massive Mammarist, and with a bit of modern gun technology, come out winning, since fire is strong against grass, at least to an extent, as we'll see later on. Just like in Pokemon, your pals have a set number of abilities they can use as well. But what's actually awesome here is that you can teach your pal new abilities or swap new and old with each other without losing access to the previously learned ability. Abilities are taught either by leveling up each pal or by finding them out in the world and then applying them to a pal, which is a very intuitive way of doing things. This not only gives you more ability freedom than Pokemon ever did in this single change, but it makes it so that you can have 2 pals or more of the same kind that act quite differently in terms of abilities. It's a system that works well, and you can even choose to remove abilities you don't want if you wish that your pal only used that one special move you've come to love extra much. What's interesting about pals though is that there are essentially 3 ways of leveling them up. You can have up to 5 pals in your party at any given time, and every pal on hand, whether they're doing the actual fighting or not, gain the same amount of experience points. This is usually the fastest way of leveling. The second is by having them work. Everything you ever do, whether it's crafting arrows, frying some eggs in front of your chicken, or building a bed, gains you and your working pals experience, although it's not a lot per action, but still. And third is by using a machine to gather the same pal of a kind and turn them into a stronger version. It's not complicated really, and it works as it should. I do think though that it could have been interesting to have a system where the pal you actually utilized gained the more experience than the dormant pals in your deck, if you didn't use them in a given battle. But honestly, even though I in Pokemon kind of dislike the system of every Pokemon gaining levels despite not being used, it feels more natural here somehow. It might be because of the fully real-time aspect of the game, and that it makes it feel more natural and less gamey to have shared experience gain. The last major level system is for you, the player, whose level determines your stats, which not only lets you upgrade your attributes once per level to increase stats like health, attack power, stamina, work speed, and carry capacity, but also allows you to improve your technology. This is arguably the single most important factor in the game in determining what you can and can't do, since it literally enables and stops you from making things you need. You can already from the beginning see what kind of base tech you unlock all the way until the top level, and there is some spicy tech here, not gonna lie, from unlocking a crossbow to an actual rifle and machine gun nest, but you'll also see that a ton of tech is not yet discovered. This means that they're hidden behind until now, yet uncaptured pals. You see, pals have yet another skill I haven't mentioned yet, namely a unique partner ability. These abilities are unlocked in 3 steps. You gotta capture the pal, unlock their corresponding technology, and then produce that tech at a workstation. Once that's done, you'll be able to make use of abilities that can drastically change your game. One of the first partner techs I unlocked, for example, was a nuzzly little automatic machine gun for my cute grass pal. Before I managed to provide the monkey Tansy with an automatic spray and pray stick as well. But what really changed up my game were 2 birds in particular. You see, birds are amazing in this game, and even though you need to reach a relatively high level to unlock its ability, you'll find the first of them, Nightwing, not far from the initial starting location. The first hours of Palworld will inevitably see you do most, if not all, of your travels on foot, and this can last you hours. You know there's so much world out there to explore, but for now, you're mostly getting there by traveling to the next fast travel spot and back. Well, with Nightwing's harness, you can actually jump on its back and fly. It's an incredible feeling to be able to straight up take to the skies in a game like this whenever you want, seeing just how open the world is and how free it makes you feel. I realize Palworld isn't the first game that lets you fly like this, but it really doesn't matter. The world is so massive and colorful and beautiful, generic looking though it might be and low textures here and there, but it still retains some of that wonder from games that have inspired it. The violent rock formations, the sheer size of its mountains, the giant tree in the far distance, the vast oceans, a massive fiery volcano, or perhaps a frozen solid mountain where you better not go unless you got your winter coat on. It's all here, much more readily available to you with Nightwing's ability unlocked. Now before you get Nightwing's ability, you'll actually be able to unlock and build a glider, which is the first true step into soaring through the air, albeit at a much slower and downward facing pace. It's a great addition to the game, no doubt, but what's just pure and unadulteratedly better is the bird Galeclaw. Galeclaw can't actually help you fly like Nightwing can, but it can act as your personal bird glider. Having Galeclaw's ability really does take gliding to the next level, as it's so much more snappy, fast, and long-lasting than the glider could ever be. I mean it completely changes how you move about the environment. It looks kind of dopey perhaps, but it feels good, and that's what matters. In fact, that's kind of what matters about everything in Palworld. Thanks to a design that just feels approachable and indeed snappy, it's just so much easier to pick up and get started with than many other games in the genre. Those are for me the 2 coolest game-changing abilities pals have given me. But another personal favorite of mine is the Huggy Fire ability of Foxsparks, which basically turns the little devil into a certified flamethrower, which can absolutely wreck multiple enemies at a time. There are so many pal companion techs like these to unlock and produce as you level up, and it makes each pal that much more unique. This means that Palworld has 3 major level systems. A level for your pal box, which changes the pal capacity in your base and provides you with new missions or challenges to unlock the next pal level. A level for your pals, which determines their health, attack power, and abilities. And a level for the player, which governs your own stats and the technologies available to you. This means that in pure leveling alone, you're gonna see a lot of numbers go up, which does admittedly feel good. But unless you know how to commit properly, things can and will feel like they're taking excruciatingly long. Like I said before, doing menial tasks does net you very little
Hi, bread
XP,
boy.
and simply killing enemies doesn't really give you the big numbers either, but capturing pals does. Palworld has a system where capturing a new pal and then capturing 10 different versions of that same pal nets you a large bonus experience every time. This
I'm
means that
doing
if you wanna
good. I'm
level up
actually kind of
fast,
sick. I
which
have a
you
headache
should
really
because it lets
bad
you unlock
and
the good stuff, you better focus on capturing 10 different specimens of the same low-level pal before moving on to the harder stuff. If you keep on doing this,
I'm
you'll
not sick,
actually
I
level
guess.
up
I
in
just
no
have this
time
weird
until you
kink in
reach
my
about level
neck and
20
it's
or
making me
so,
have a
after which
headache.
things start to take a bit longer. But it's still doable to level up by going on a capture spree of new pal types. Although of course this can be considered a grind in itself, and yes, XP does take a long time to get and you will be doing it a lot. I do make sure to say low level types in the beginning though, mainly because of 2 reasons. Just like in Pokemon,
Hi,
you can
awesome.
get several types of pal spheres, each sphere costing more resources to make, but which are able to catch larger and more experienced pals. In addition, higher level pals are dangerous, and since default settings has you lose everything in your inventory if you die, it's a lot smarter to just not die that is, and certainly not fight pals that are 5 to 10 levels higher than you. In this respect, this
Yeah,
might
it
be one of
sucks.
the
I need
worst
to go
features
to
of
like
the
a
game for me.
chiropractor or get a
Obviously,
massage or
this will be
something.
a challenge when going up against higher level pals, but the scaling is off. It shouldn't be the case that being 5 to 10 levels below an enemy makes them almost unbeatable. Certainly 10 levels lower is mostly a death sentence for both you and your pal. It makes it feel like Assassin's Creed Odyssey or something, where if you were just a few levels lower than an enemy boss, it would be almost impossible to beat them, since they could essentially one-shot you while you dealt no damage at all to them. Palworld might not be as unforgiving, but it's damn close, and it's a shame that despite having type advantages, that we can't fully utilize them.
Oh, we're
Since
going
it's
to
by
do a
far
VR chat
most
stream a
important
little bit
factor here
later. I have a
isn't
really
pals
good
and
video
players'
for us to
level distance
watch.
from an enemy, not their type, nor other advantages. In this sense, it makes it feel less like a true RPG, mainly since the factor of tactics and skill is removed if the level disparity is just slightly off in the enemy's favor. I suppose we've dealt so much with battles that we might just as well cover it now. Battling and capturing in Palworld is so integral to the experience that you'd be justified in calling it the most important one. And frankly, I believe it's the sole reason why this game sold like toilet paper during Rona. Battling and capturing is as
Hold
intertwined
on.
here as it is in the Pokemon games. The only difference is that in 2024, Palworld actually makes the process engaging. Everything happens in the overworld, you don't even enter some fighting stance or dish out orders in turn. It's all real time, all the time, everywhere. Starting a fight is as easy as hacking away or shooting at the enemy, or wait until a higher level enemy starts hacking on or shooting at you or your pal. It's the snappiness for me, the instant moment-to-moment action that allows Palworld to fulfill a Pokemon dream I'm not alone in having had for the past 25 years or so. Because as the fighting's underway, or even before if you're so daring, you can try to capture that pal and turn this battle
Hopefully
into an
this
exciting
helps.
game of chance every time, where you turn the odds in your favor by depleting the enemy's health and status and by using better pal skills. Why settle for one? You can even fight and attempt to capture multiple pals at the same time, since again, this is an open and seamless world, where basically anything goes as long as it's within draw distance and aggro range. The higher level the enemy, the lower your chances of capture is, no matter the pal sphere really, which makes it all the more thrilling to venture deep into the world and find pals of shapes and sizes you've never seen before. It should be mentioned though that capturing a higher level pal will artificially lower that pal's level to
Yeah, well, what time? What do you mean they're
taking
taking your power?
Pokemon's thing, where the Pokemon might not obey your orders if you don't have enough gym badges, but I don't know, I don't really like this all that much. It's hard enough to catch higher level pals, and it's another way the game utilizes level scaling and weird balancing to make the game feel less RPG-like and more bland in a sense. In terms of animations, yes, pals do more than just stand in a spot and perform the same 20-year-old moves. In fact, they're quite versatile, and you'll see pals closing in or keeping a distance in order to perform either short or long distance attacks. It becomes quite a spectacle with the right abilities, and yes, it's even possible to manually perform the attacks of a pal you're riding on, like Nightwing. It's actually relatively wild when you just mow down a row of rabid enemies, and you wonder why nothing quite like this has been made before. Of course, apart from your pals, you're involved in every battle too. Your advantages, as you make them, is your selection of weapons and armor, ranging from clubs to
Wait, is my
bows,
power gonna
guns
be
and
taken?
grenades, to your health boosts like armor and shields. But like your pal, you're quite an easy target for higher level enemies, but it's vital to keep incoming attacks in mind, even against similarly leveled foes. One of my favorite features of
What
Palworld
nation are you
combat
in?
is the player's ability
Wait,
to dodge at
where are
virtually
you from
every
even?
given time.
I guess I
Running
should probably
around,
ask
why
that.
not dodge?
You're not from
Aiming at the
America,
enemy,
are you?
Dodge even cooler, either to the side, forwards or backwards. Holding your pal and using your special attack? Well, you can still dodge, bro. Simple as. With the Gale Claw's ability, you can even glide around the battlefield for faster movement speeds as long as your stamina allows, or of course ride around on your pal while in battle. You can even glide with Gale Claw and shoot at an enemy simultaneously, or even swoop in and toss a damn spear from the air. It's genuinely awesome to be able to fight alongside your pals seamlessly like this. And the fact that jumping, rolling, running, calling
The
your
VR
pals in
chat
and out of
stream.
the spears, and attempting to capture new ones is all so readily available. It really does make Palworld charming and fun. And again, something you'd wish you'd seen from Game Freak and Pokemon many years ago. I think in terms of the player,
I'll try
the
to wait
weapon
to do that
selection
till
is
after the 2
decent,
hours
but
is
it's
done or
very skewed
whatever.
towards range weapons. That's
I'm from
fun.
California.
Using
Oh, you
those
live in
with
Africa?
surprisingly
Oh my
good
god, I
visibly
did not know that.
appropriate sounds and animations. I mean, loading that musket does take a while, but the fact that loading isn't just a circle slowly loading, but an actual dedicated jerk and clean animation is awesome. And the same goes for literally every other weapon. Like, it shouldn't be this cool to reload a handgun in a game about capturing cute animals, but it is.
That is crazy.
What's not as cool is dealing with the atrocious inventory UI system. There are a lot of different items and equipment in Palworld, and you'll soon find that you're filling up what space you have. But for some reason, you can't properly sort your items into food or weapons or armor. And it becomes especially frustrating if you're using a controller, since the item description window is always present. We can equip 4 different weapons or gadgets at any given time, which is surprisingly little. But what makes it worse is that there's no weapon wheel in the game. You have to scroll to or past every weapon on hand to get the one you want, rather than simply choosing it from a wheel or pop-up window.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that.
Similarly, having to wade through your entire item bag to find the piece of armor or weapon you need for a certain situation is another time waster, rather than doing what actual competent games are doing, which is to offer not just one general menu, but segment each part of your inventory into dedicated sections for each type of item. I've talked a bit about how I lament the current level scaling when you fight pals of slightly higher levels, but that's not the only thing that irks me. It's disappointing that pals don't really have any weak points one can exploit for more damage, say in a situation where the levels indeed were off. And while it is possible to dodge roll away, the invincibility frame seems sketchy at best.
That's scary.
It's hard to know whether they actually exist, or if we're just able to get out of an attack's range just in time. Even though the world itself offers a large variety of different pals of all shapes and sizes, there are also boss battles to be fought in this game. While they are about as exciting as any battle against tough enemies depending on your level, they don't really do much else new. They might feature your average waifu riding atop their backs, but there's not much more than that. No real new mechanics to speak of, other than being confined to a specific area that you can't escape from. I think this is a lost opportunity to make boss battles a true event, but it is at least cool that they're here, and that they represent more or less the ultimate
I'll miss you
challenge in
too.
PAL battles over
I'll
time.
try to wait
That
for
being
2
said,
hours
there
so
are
that you
plenty
can
of
watch our
challenges to
stream
fight
with
in the
me.
open world as well, and you're definitely going to want to be around level 30 to 40 before attempting to take on the majority of more exotic and large enemies out there. I say this because in the end, and for experience and new PAL reasons, you're going to want to have access to higher tier PAL spheres. PAL spheres work identical to Pokeballs in Pokemon, in that once they're tossed, the PAL has essentially 3 chances of breaking free, depending on the very visible percentage chance here. The process is represented surprisingly well, as a lot of things in this game are, and the sounds and sights of tossing a sphere, watching it wiggle around in the air, and then getting the capture is actually quite great. I think the design of the spheres are cool. I like that they change color the higher tier they are, and it's cool that pals can actively kick the sphere away if you fail to deplete their health first. Be prepared for the fact that the initial spheres will only be enough for low level enemies below level 10 or less though, especially if you don't want to waste 10 or more spheres on one pal. Since after all it is chance based. You'll find that the moment you start to explore the world, the yellow Giga Spheres is soon going to be the most viable choice for a while. Well, until you can get the red Hypersphere, of course.
I didn't mean to hit the fucking
Thing is,
power,
though,
my bad.
In order to get these better spheres, you need to have a proper PAL operation going, which combined with the combat and capturing is what Palworld is all about. We talked upon building our base in
The PAL.
but you have to understand how integral the crafting and building is to the game, and how much time and grinding it's going to demand from you. You see, Palworld is a grinding game.
Get out of there, holy
especially
shit.
for not being a mobile game. For while it is as fun as always to see your base expand, unlock new gear and workstations, and see the variety of buildings and gadgets expand, it does come at a significant cost to your time and enjoyment of the game. That's because Palworld has no, absolutely zero, respect for your time. While this little waiting circle might seem harmless in the beginning, because most things
Yeah, you
take
can
just
come
a
hang
few
out,
seconds
bread
or
boy,
less to
that's
craft,
fine.
it will become your worst enemy a few hours down the line. Not only will buildings end up taking more than a minute to craft on your own, but at least they have an actual timer. You see, individual items, not just cooking food, will demand a production time. And again, while it doesn't hurt too much in the beginning perhaps, it's going to hurt later on. Crafting those higher tier spheres, for example, or basically anything that unlocks past level 20, is excruciating, especially for items that you're going to want to mass produce, like spheres or ammunition. It's especially tedious and disrespectful considering that all you're doing is holding the same button or key for literally a minute or more depending, and you're going to do that a lot. That's not even mentioning how many resources these things take to make. I swear I've done nothing but standing in place and holding the same button for at least 5% of my game time, which actually amounts to hours. That does not include the regular grind of mining and chopping, by the way. This is purely based on crafting, and that is just not alright at all. It adds nothing to the game, but forces you to waste time and play longer. It's a bad proposition to players who want to have fun and not literally just waste time, and the in-game quote-unquote fix isn't always reliable. You see, you can mitigate the time waste in a number of ways to at least make you waste slightly less time. By upgrading your work speed with leveling up, you technically produce and build stuff faster, even though we're talking a matter of seconds on the minute here. But the main way of decreasing time waste is by having your pals do the dirty work for you. Now this is going to help you to a point. You're going to need pals that are able to do handiwork, cooking, or mining for them to be of use to you in most of these time waste cases. But even then, you need a number of them for the difference to truly show. And even then, you need the systems to actually work, like pathfinding and just general AI. There have been so many times where pals get stuck or just refuse to participate in working due to a number of reasons, mostly related to pathfinding, that they just never end up helping. If you're not in a hurry, you can also prepare items for production and just leave, and pray to the pal gods that your pals complete them while you're away. But you know, sometimes a pal just likes to do nothing for no reason, or get stuck in a spot for no reason, and so nothing gets done. But even with an army of pals at your side, building stuff takes time away from actually having fun. And in reality, it gives nothing back. While it gives off a certain feeling of dopamine to complete a time circle quickly, it's deeply frustrating to sit and wait for a hot hour, while those higher tier items or buildings are being produced, with no good reason for doing so other than to literally force you to spend more time in Pal World, because it is in fact vital that you do get stuff made. While I think the game should be given a modicum of praise for offering an insanely interesting concept at a relatively low price, while also refraining from pushing or even offering a single microtransaction that can alleviate this time wasting, for now at least. But don't think that won't come later on as paid options, by the way, which I think is highly likely. The game acts as if it does, as if it desperately wants to sell you these time savers that currently don't exist. But instead of going the microtransaction route to save time, the devs can just remove the time wasting altogether for literally no downsides. In fact, this choice is so ingrained into the game design that it's not even a factor you can change in the game's world settings. You can change how quickly you gain XP and level up, and a host of other aspects to change the pace of gameplay, but not production time, which tells you that you're supposed to waste time in Pal World. It's also a fact that you will be fast traveling a ton back and forth between your base, various furnaces, and your resource locations once the game gets going. Now, while I do appreciate the subtle art of mining in a game like Minecraft, Pal World really sucks the joy out of it because it soon demands such extreme amount of resources out of you. And because refining these resources and then manufacture the actual items or buildings takes so long, the fastest way to
This
do
is my
whole thing
mining
and
base.
minimize
Got
the
lots
time
of
and
ingot
personally
now.
spend on it
We don't
is to
lack any
set up,
ingot.
say,
We
two
got all the
bases,
ingot.
one being your home base and another being a resource spot. You get pals to work the resources while you're gone, but perhaps contribute in the mining now and then. Thing is though, even though other pals can transport the mined ore to boxes, they won't autonomously place them in the furnace. You'll have to do that yourself every time. And since resources are only shared within one base, not all bases, you'll have to constantly move back and forth if you want to get anywhere, since you can only carry so much at any given time. This makes Pal World a grindfest bar none after my first 10 hours or so. Even though it definitely begins as such, it's just not as blatantly obvious about it. In essence though, Pal World does very little if nothing new when it comes to crafting and production, other than having the look of industrialization as you go and the absolute wackiness of seeing what's essentially Pokemon being treated as industrial revolution indentured workers. That brings us to an important topic surrounding Pal World, the very real and valid accusations of plagiarism, the more questionably alleged outright theft of certain Pokemon model designs, or at the very least a blatant and shameless inspiration. But something is more shady than others, because Pal World is shameless in what it does. It essentially combines a whole lot of concepts from various other hyper-popular games and combines it into one product. Sometimes much worse than its inspiration, and sometimes better. For while Pokemon is the obvious surface level product the game's copying, and arguably improving upon when it comes to the capture and battle systems, it's not the only game it copies. Explore the world just a little, and you'll find abandoned churches dotting the map, looking eerily similar to not just a certain church in The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, but the concept of specifically ruined churches, might I add, is likely taken directly from Elden Ring, the more recent open world game that uses abandoned churches as a main concept. The Elden Ring inspiration is further strengthened by the
Dude,
fact
I
that the
swear to
game
God the
literally
ingot's
features
disappearing.
arenas out in the world that uses a circled area as a teleporter to a boss battle. Elden Ring is the only game that's ever done this in this way to my knowledge, and the design similarities speak for themselves. This is blatant copying and just so recognizable that it frankly goes above and beyond just imitation at this point. One thing would be to have hotspots in the world where bosses existed like this, and you could still teleport there with some contraption. But to actually have a circle formation just like this, and very specifically modeled broken churches, I don't know, it's just obvious what's going on here. Add to that these subtle piano tunes when you arrive in a new region in the world, and it's almost like Pocket Pair, the developer of Power
Hi,
World,
baby.
is on a
Okay,
mission
okay.
to taunt
Yeah, I
newcomers
have a really bad
specifically,
headache.
but from software as well. Now that's not to say that inspiration is illegal. Games and developers inspire and are inspired by each other all the time. Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom take obvious inspiration from Ubisoft games.
So I'll
Immortals
probably
Phoenix
only
Rising
be
is
playing this
clearly
for a little bit
inspired by
longer.
Breath of the Wild as a concept, and every shooter out there is now essentially Fortnite. Inspiration is nothing new, and can be used for both good and bad, but it's the obvious mishmash of everything that makes it so blatantly obvious in Palworld. The game quite literally has only two unique ideas: the seamlessness of the PAL battles and capture, and the meta idea of combining all of these other games' ideas into one. Now, does this make it less fun? Not necessarily, and not on its own. Palworld is actually a ton of fun. For a while anyway. Well, until the
Yeah,
second
I'm
wave
just
soon
gonna
starts
apply stream.
thriving, and the few gameplay options it offers become obvious. Because once you become familiar with the game, after just a few hours maybe, and learn its ins and outs, it does start to dawn on you that, oddly, Palworld doesn't really have a soul. And it's strange because most things are technically here. The world at its best.
A video, like to watch a video with my chat, but I'll do it in the same world as you. Obviously, we'll just do it like last time I'll lay with you. Yeah, I'm probably going to get ready for the stream right now, actually. I just don't really feel good. BRB.